What do these two cars have in common, other than the name GTO? Very little, but both played a big part in the birth of the muscle car. Gran Turismo Omologato. 3 beautiful Italian words that changed an entire industry. For years, the name Gran Turismo Omologato was reserved for the fastest, most exotic thoroughbred racing cars. And probably the most famous Gran Turismo Omologato bore this insignia. This is Ferrari's version of the Gran Turismo Omologato. In September 1964, it was the standard by which all the other great performance cars of the world were judged. It was a magnificent automobile, no doubt about it. Nothing in the automotive world dared compare itself to this car. Nothing, that is, but a plain little Pontiac Tempest. Gran Turismo Omologato, or GTO for short. This is the 1964 Pontiac GTO. It is, by all accounts, the car that ushered in the era of the muscle car in America. That incredible time when Detroit produced the most outrageous cars to ever hit the street. Today, the GTO is one of the most collectible of all American cars. Restored 64 GTOs sell for 10 times their original sticker price. And thousands of enthusiasts have created an entire industry out of their love and desire to at last own their own little GTO. Pontiac's sales brochure on the 64 GTO called it a device for shrinking time and distance. For 1964, Pontiac had taken their sensible, economical Tempest Compact, given it a gorgeous facelift, and offered it up with their 389 cubic inch power plant in an option package they dared to call GTO. The 64 design was completely new, from the grille to the gas cap. The Tempest, the Chevy Chevelle, the Olds Cutlass, and the Buick Grand Sport were the new wave of intermediate cars from General Motors, and they were turning young people on.
What does he have that she doesn't?
Unlike the rest of the cute and sporty new breed, though, the GTO was born to be bad.
And a lot of my friends had 390 Fords, 383 Plymouths, but they were all big cars. And I was looking to buy one of those, maybe a 426 Street Wedge, something like that, in 1964. Then I saw the first ad for the Pontiac GTO. I believe it was the ad that said, "I wouldn't stand in the middle of the road if I were you. There's a Pontiac GTO coming." I just liked the idea of the mid-size car with the large engine, which was actually the first muscle car.
Back in the 50s, the fastest cars were the big cars, the ones you saw on the track every Sunday.
The race is on.
Pontiac and all the other Detroit automakers had discovered that the cars that won on Sunday sold on Monday.
But half a lap behind, coming from 46th starting position, Fireball Roberts in number 3 Pontiac.
Pontiac's factory-supported teams won more NASCAR races than anyone else in the early 60s, including both the Daytona 500 and the Firecracker 250 in 1962.
Bill Abraham from Akron, Ohio, wins the A-Stock Automatic Crown in a 62 Pontiac.
Pontiac was no stranger at the nation's drag strips either. Working through their network of performance dealerships around the country, Pontiac's engineering department was funneling special parts and information directly to what was in effect a factory drag team. By the end of 1962, all these racing activities had vaulted Pontiac from last place in sales among General Motors divisions to number 2 behind Giant Chevrolet. But in January of 1963, General Motors announced a corporate ban on all racing activities. No more factory support for any kind of racing, either direct or through the dealers.
Two Pontiacs duel in the B Factory experimental class, with Jim Wangers, the number 926, winning it.
Jim Wangers was one of those win-on-Sunday Pontiac racers. On Monday, though, Jim was advertising executive for Pontiac Motor Division, and the pullout from racing hit him doubly hard.
With the advent of this new policy from the corporation, here was Pontiac suddenly without a stage on which to put their cars. They were suddenly deprived of this organized racing activity, from which a very good backup for some aggressive advertising built around the wide track image was coming.
How do you continue to be the #1 performance car in the country when you can't go racing? Stay with us as the American muscle car continues.
The new 1963 Pontiac.
All through 1963, Pontiac had two problems to deal with. One, GM's prohibition on factory support for racing, in effect, gave away their performance image to Ford and Chrysler. Two, their little compact car, the Tempest, was fast becoming a liability rather than an asset.
The car that had bowed in 1961 as a real engineering marvel had deteriorated significantly to the point where it was a real troubled car. In 1964, when the new Tempest/Le Mans car came into the marketplace, it was felt that what we needed was not just another nice, not just another good car. What we needed was kind of what we called in the industry an oh my God.
At the time, the head of Pontiac Engineering was a pretty sharp young fellow named John DeLorean.
Now, John DeLorean, who was then at that time the chief engineer of the division, had it a habit of holding what-if sessions on Saturday mornings.
That what-if created this car, the GTO. Putting the 389 in a Tempest created the world's first muscle car, and it was an instant hit with everyone. Well, almost everyone. As it happens, the GTO almost never made it into Pontiac's lineup. GM's corporate rule was engine sizes were limited to 1 cubic inch per 10 pounds of vehicle weight. Well, here's this Tempest weighing in at about 3,400 pounds wet. You see the problem.
Well, you didn't have to be a brain surgeon to figure out that a car that weighed about 3,400 or 3,500 pounds couldn't have anything bigger than about a 350 cubic inch V8 engine. But if the car were marketed as a Le Mans with the 326 cubic inch V8 as standard equipment, but with the optional GTO package, which carried such things as a special applique for the instrument panel and a couple of hood scoops, however not functional, a couple more of those kinds of things, and oh yes, incidentally, a 389 cubic inch engine. In effect, the muscle car era was upon us.
Slick move, huh? And the best part is, it worked. The GTO was in the showrooms. Now all Pontiac had to do was persuade the world that this car was really something special.
Pontiac is proud to announce that the editors...
Jim Wangers and the marketing people had been having a lot of fun promoting Pontiacs as win-on-Sunday race cars.
The award reads...
But the job of selling the GTO to the young people of America is one of the greatest success stories in American marketing.
See and price those wide-track Tigers by Pontiac.
Even those of us that knew quite a bit about Pontiacs really weren't told about this offering. And kind of like through the rumor mill, hey, have you heard about the GTO? The GTO, what's that? Well, it's got 421 HO heads, it's a 389, it's got tri-power, yeah, but it's in a body that weighs about 3,300 pounds. Oh yeah? How much is it? A fortune? No, it really isn't any more than just a couple $100 really more than a loaded Le Mans. Well, let's go see one.